Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tabletop Cyberpunk, the podcast about Cyberpunk 2020 and Red, the tabletop games. My name is JonJonTheWise, and today we have a very special, amazing day. I'll get straight into it. Today we have two guests with me, but before we get into that, make sure you guys are joining our Discord community. The link will be in the description below. We talk about Cyberpunk. It's a Cyberpunk Discord. That's what it's all about. We just made an alliance with the subreddit of Cyberpunk Red, and it's awesome. And make sure you're a part of that. Follow me on social media at JonJonTheWise all over the place. And make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. For those of you guys that are watching on YouTube, that's because I also do a podcast. So if you're already here, then thank you. All right. Today I have with me Jackie, and aka Barry Ruth from the Wise Guys, but we all know him as WhatTheFoole. He is with me as the resident rules lawyer. How you doing, Brian?
What's up, man?
And
I'm not sure I appreciate that term, but
we're gonna bring it
nowhere. Okay,
we're gonna make it a non-derogatory term, all right? Because being a lawyer is prestigious, all right?
Okay.
So don't be ashamed of your lawyerness. And the reason I have Brian on with me today is because we have none other than James Hutt from RTalsorian Games, their rules lawyer, their rules district attorney. How you doing, James?
This is Supreme Court.
Supreme. Oh, sorry. I got my titles wrong.
Stops here.
When I see it. The Judge Dredd of RTalsorian Games. He is the law. So the reason I have James here today is because all three of us, we have been looking at Cyberpunk for a long time. James longer than me, and it has just come out. There's so many questions out there. People want to know so many things about Cyberpunk Red. Brian and I have had the honor to play the game for these past few months. I think June or July even is when we got it. And since then, I mean, it's been a roller coaster of enjoying the game, trying to hack it, trying to figure it out. And it's all thanks to Brian, who is the type of guy that gets deep into the rules. And James, you've always been that kind of guy too, right?
Yeah, I like rules.
It shows. It shows. But before we get into all the rules and stuff like that, I definitely want to talk about how you got started, because honestly, I just want to know how you did it. First, how did you get started in gaming and game design, and where did RTalsorian find you?
Okay, so how far back you want to go?
Let's see.
Let's go kindergarten.
Kindergarten, yeah. Monopoly.
All right, sounds good. I'm living in California. It's an indeterminate year.
Okay.
I'm in elementary school. My friend has an N64.
Oof.
He also has an SNES, and we sometimes play on the SNES when his older brothers are playing on the N64.
Damn, that's such a downgrade. That's like the hardest downgrade I've ever heard in my life.
Oh no. You got Kirby, that game with the it's got 6 Kirby games in the same game.
You're talking about Kirby Superstar, dude?
It's perfect. Oh, it's perfect.
It's the best game ever, man. Have you played that, Brian?
Be a player too.
No, I never played that one.
Play Superstar Saga.
So,
or any of the remakes. They've remade that game 6 times.
Kirby was never my game, man. I was always playing Mario Kart.
Mario Kart's great too.
Yeah, it's a good game.
Double Dash. That's a good game. So then I get my first console. It's actually not for a while. I get the Game Boy Advance. And the screen sucks. The SP was better.
Yeah.
It's about around that time I start playing tabletop role-playing games. I play 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons with my friends in middle school. It's great. My first adventure was you're going up a wizard's tower, and the wizard is dead. That's the surprise.
Oh, but there's another sinister force.
Owlbear experiments that have escaped all over the tower, and you try to get up to the top, and at the top he's dead on his alchemy table, and he's been gored by an owlbear. And all of the owlbears have little gems in their foreheads. Yes, I predated Steven Universe. And if you remove the gems, they get clearer and clearer, and after a month they're diamonds. That's my whole adventure.
So that's
First thing
fun.
I ever run.
There's so many layers to that.
Anyway, they liked it. They had fun. Everybody had a good time.
That's fun to me. I want to play that now. There's so many layers to that story.
I definitely could have written a better version now than I did that. Anyway,
hey, for your first one, not bad.
Bro, I wish I was that good on my first one. Are you kidding me?
In high school, I'm playing at a Dungeons and Dragons club, which I created. And we're the only club at my boarding school allowed to stay up after bedtime. After lights out, we can keep our lights on because we play with the physics teacher, and that is the nerdiest thing that you can possibly do in high school. Is play D&D with your physics teacher.
Okay, wait. Was the physics teacher the game master?
No, he's a player.
That's hilarious.
Which makes it even cooler.
That is so much cooler.
Are you... So, Mr. Smith, I see you're going up against the vampiric minotaur. Now, are you sure I failed that last exam?
Oh, he was ruthless. He didn't care.
No,
we didn't bring it in.
Killed my character.
Stopped at the front door.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Yeah.
I played a cleric of Paylor. All right. So I go to college. I go to Kenyon College. I get a BA in economics because I figure it's the closest I can get to getting a game design degree. I take design courses every summer, sort of try to get a little bit of that knowledge. And I'm sort of hedging because, to be honest, for me at that point, my vision of it was trying to make games for a living might as well be trying to be an astronaut, and not everybody gets to be an astronaut, even if they want to.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm hedging, so I get the most, oh gee, if this doesn't work out, I'll still have something else marketable degree possible, which is a BA in economics, focusing on game theory.
Wow.
So anyway, but it turned out that I probably didn't need to hedge as much as I did, but I'm glad I did. Learned a lot about statistics. Gotta love statistics. Actually, I do.
Well, I'll tell you what, when other people from Talsorian are talking about you and talking about the game design, they always talk about how you have that economics degree and how much that plays such a big part in your game design. And I can, just from looking at the rules, Cyberpunk Red, we can see that there's like an like there's a plan when you go through this book. That's what I got from it. Like compared to like old books 30 years ago, like the last iteration, that was just like people having fun, writing what they think is cool, and not really worrying too much about the plan. But what we're seeing, what's modernized with what you do, is the plan is evident from the beginning.
One of my favorite things I was able to work in is that time as a value. There are ways to get more for your time, but time, the fact that things take time, matters, and it matters consistently throughout. And if you're breaking that, then you're doing it because you're using a powerful ability that you have that other people don't have access to.
I see.
Anyway, this is most important when we're probably going to talk about tech later.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
So, I'm really excited to get into that. So I get out of school. It's 2016. There's a recession. Bad time to get out of school. Anyway, I can't find a job. I'm working. I'm doing some freelance game design. I'm working with my buddy. We hired ourselves to make a zine and just give it away, which was great because that's how I got in Dragon Magazine the first time, which is sort of what enabled me to start trying to find work in the industry. I make a couple of video games too. The first one's Triangulate. It's a great game with a big heart, did not do very well. But it was a lot of people's first game, and it was a fantastic team, and boy, just had the best people. The other one's Tiny Bubbles. It did a lot better. It was a little puzzle game, and I got to make puzzles. It was great, and very proud of that. Proud to Triangulate too, of course. But about around this time, I'm shopping around a board game version of Triangulate, and that's when I go to a particularly good game store. No longer exists, sadly.
Oh, rest in peace.
And I'm just trying. Honestly, I'm just trying to hawk copies of a board game, like basically with my car.
Yeah,
full of boxes.
That's admirable, dude.
Well, it feels admirable, after the fact, but during it is not admirable.
Yeah, during everyone's like, James, what are you doing?
During that process.
You have a degree, James. What are you doing?
Gotta admit, I was in the right place at the right time. And the right place is talking to Aaron Tarbuck, who introed me to his friend, who's just sitting over there checking out a comic book, I think, Mike Pondsmith. And I play the game with him, and he likes the Triangulate. And I say, oh, that's great. Can I, because I'm in full networking everything mode, hitting every button. And I had failed a previous meet and greet with someone of Mike's standing previous, and that sort of taught me to not do that again.
Okay. And
I was able to use the failure, which was talking to a guy, awesome dude.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. And, I screwed up.
Yeah.
Named Ed Freeze, who basically is the reason we have an Xbox.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Google that later.
That's you shot for the dude. I love that you shot for the stars though. Like you're like, I have this thing. I'm gonna take it to whoever will listen to me.
Well, I had this fancy concept that it could be a pack-in game with Windows. And of course, that's a dumb idea. But fire on all cylinders, right? Anyway, so I learned what not to do. And then I met Mike Pondsmith, and I was desperate to not screw it up. And I said, oh, thank you for playing, I said, oh, here's my email, So I'm trying to engender a situation in which I get to meet him again and pitch him something. So I made a really cool little card game furiously in the week right after that meeting and said, oh, can we meet next week? And then I'm like, I better make something 7 days.
Wow.
And I brought it and he liked it. And and what he said after I showed it to him, and asked him other questions, of course, was, I'd like to buy this. And from then they became one of my freelance clients, and they were my favorite. And I'm really happy that I was able to eventually convince them to bring me on full time.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
About a year.
And then, and so about what time did you start working on Red?
We started working on Red after we finished the Jumpstart kit. Right after.
Okay.
On the ground floor, but as it was starting up. I mean, a lot of lore sections had already been written because Mike has had them for a long, long time, just moving things forward.
So would it be fair to say that they had the idea of where they wanted the story to go, but they didn't know how they were going to tackle the mechanics of the game? Like, how are we going to change combat to make it modern? How are we going to change skill checks to make it modern, etc.?
So I'd say that happened more organically. It was a lot more like we have all this great stuff, and before the Jumpstart kit, we were doing it, and I started pitching like, hey, I think this should work this way, and hey, maybe this should work this way. And it's the way you get anything done. You say, hey, I made a thing. How do you feel about this thing? And I just kept doing that until I did that a lot.
Yeah. Same. I mean, if anybody plays with their buddies that are also game masters, that's like exactly what you do with each other. You're like, hey, I changed the way that this mechanic works in this game, but you guys did it on like, we're making a game level.
Yeah, well, a lot of the stuff from 2020 is really great and is like foundational.
Yeah.
But game design has come a long way. It's been a long time since 2020. I mean, there were 2 editions in the middle of there.
Yeah.
And it's how do you bring everything forward and be able to present it to people who are used to playing a lot of 5th edition. But also, you got to bring in the old fans, you know? How do you make something for everybody?
Yeah.
That was the real question. And it was super collaborative and awesome, and everybody at RTal was just fantastic to work with.
Yeah, it was honestly, I was
Major dream job, serious man. It's the
yeah,
best.
100%. I'm one of the biggest proponents of Red and everything that you guys have done. It's a home run in my opinion. And just as a longtime 2020 player, just looking at all the things that I personally had to change for my game, the mechanics that I had to change and stuff like that, I was thinking, like, what are they going to do? How are they going to fix auto fire to make it less deadly? Is making the game less deadly making it a worse game? Is armor layering fine the way it is? Should they have changed it? All these like questions were in my head, and I was so worried about the whole thing.
We'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some questions coming up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got this job I'm coming up on my 2nd-year anniversary. And put out Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart, which is Journal. Book of Tales is coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I did a whole lot of writing on that, so I'm hopping between Witcher and Cyberpunk, and it's great. Talk about 2 awesome licenses to be able to do at the same time. It's just fantastic.
What could you tell us about Black Chrome?
I can't really talk about Black Chrome
nothing,
right now.
Nothing right now.
I tell you what, couple of months, let's do this again. We can talk all you want about Black Chrome.
You got it. I'll take you up on that offer for sure. 100%. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so let's just get straight into it, guys, because I know you guys are listening in because you want the juicy meat of it. We're about 19 minutes in. So let's get straight to exactly what it is. Now, to give you guys a little heads up, Brian and I brainstormed together, and we got some questions of stuff that we had always been talking about, even before, with everything, us playing the Wise Guys game and everything. And then now that the game is released, I've talked to other people as well. They've brought up things, and I've sent them all to James so he can prepare his answers, so he can give us a thorough answer for all the questions that we have. And that's the plan. So let's go with our first thing. The first thing I really want to talk about is obviously one of your greatest strengths as an econ major and someone with an econ degree is the economy in Red, and how things are all categorized to give the GMs tools to make decisions on the fly. Like, that item is this quality, so it's going to be around this price, and its characteristics are like this. So tell me how all that works out.
Okay, so price categories stems from. So I got a design philosophy. I call it simplified crunch. It's crunch, but the way we're presenting it to you is simplified. Basically, it's the ultimate cake and eat it too, and all it requires is a whole lot of planning. Okay, so when we're talking about the economy and we're talking about the reason why there are these categories, first reason is so that you can easily know what's expensive and what's not. Second reason is so you can know what's available and what's not. Because if you don't have a fixer, you don't get to even talk about anything in the 500 and up categories.
Yeah.
It's not even there. You can't get an assault rifle that isn't poor quality if you don't have a fixer. You can't get a shotgun that isn't poor quality if you don't have the fixer. Et cetera, et cetera. So accessibility is a big part of why they're price categories. Other reason, trading. Cyberpunk Red, yeah, people have EB still, you know. People have currency. But a lot of time, people are people are salvaging things, right? And they want to trade in kind. And making everything the same cost kind of facilitates, hey, I got a shotgun. It's really nice. So you got that $500 item there. Tell you what, you want this?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like convincing.
It facilitates the trading. I wanted there to be a barter.
Yeah, that makes sense because you can pretty much categorize anything in the game and you don't have to make like a judgment call based on nothing. You can make a judgment call based on your knowledge of the economy. So what's like the best way that we can wrap our minds around the economy? Should we like memorize the chart of like excellent, poor quality, super? What should we do?
I mean, knowing what things cost. Here's a cool mnemonic device. Maybe if something costs more, it's worth more. You know what I mean? Like you got a $500 gun, that's a better gun than a $100 gun.
Okay.
You know, more valued. Things are valued at prices that people will pay for them. That seems like double speak. But essentially, if you're giving your players lots of $1,000 items, they're gonna very quickly run away from you.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, no, they're gonna run directly toward you, for these $1,000 items. But they're very quickly going to get like out of the gutter. And this is a game, additionally, where unless you're a corp, you're paying rent at the end of every month, or you're out on the street.
Yeah.
Which is very not good. But salvageable. It's interestingly not the end of the world, which is perhaps one of the worst parts about it.
Yeah, the giving your soul to somebody for just so you can eat kibble.
Right, exactly. Eating kibble's cheap. Nobody starves.
Yeah.
Other things happen when you live in the gutter.
There's always that shotgun
Non-starvation related stabbing.
You can't eat a shotgun.
Yes. The poor quality $100 shotgun from earlier.
I might not can eat the shotgun, but I can eat Joe steak.
That's true.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, so just knowing what prices that things are will tell you if it's okay to give it to your players. Getting consistent access to $500 items for purchase is like all that fixers get at level 1. That's their main benefit. Like, I can get you the good stuff right now.
Yeah.
Can I get you the extremely good stuff? Okay, I might have to go to a night market. But can they get it when they're there? Yeah. And anybody else? No.
Interesting. Okay, let's I love that. By the way, that's one of the things about 2020 that I would make a mistake on all the time. I'd be like trying to take real world pricing for things and that never worked out.
You learn the prices for objects, you essentially know what you should be giving to your players and what you should be saving for those big quest loot items.
Yeah, and there's even a chart in the game that tells you how much the players should get paid for the mission that they complete and how much they make in between with the hustle. So, like, taking all that, subtracting how much rent they have to pay, how much their clothes cost, and all that stuff, you can come up with exactly how much money your players should be making on average with all your gaming sessions.
I totally recommend following the guidelines of how much money players should be making for their jobs, and following the rent guidelines, and following the basically, if you keep all the economic stuff the same and you progress in a set period of time, and when you do a time skip, you make them play through what they did during the time skip, and they'll feel like they're really there and they're really struggling, which is very cyberpunk.
Yeah, 100%. That's what it's about. Hey, Brian, do you want to ask him about No, you're fine. About frag grenades?
So that is one thing we noticed while we were going through everything. I don't know if it made it into the actual hard copy rule book, but the full rules we were given to playtest and everything, it actually did not have a pricing for frag grenades anywhere in it.
So, frag grenades are armor-piercing grenades. That's by another name.
Okay, like
Yeah.
That's just we should have called armor-piercing grenades and called them out as frags.
Mhm.
That's they're intended to be frags.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
See, that makes more sense.
That
It's
actually
just one
makes
of those things that you don't.
that makes them more powerful than we thought it was, actually.
Yeah, they're really good.
I mean, let's be honest, at the point of the damage you're doing with a frag, an extra point of SP rip isn't that terrible, you know.
That's true.
It's true.
So
at the end of it, at least it feels like you shred them.
Yeah. It feels good. It feels good to do it. So, like I said, if somebody were to tell me, well, they're armor piercing, so that make grenades overpowering now. Not with the way Red does armor piercing. It's more of they should be armor piercing. You know, it's a frag grenade.
Really, what grenades do is destroy cover in a 10 meter by 10 meter square and shoot that shrapnel all over the place and shred everybody around it, which is amazing.
Yeah, in the ammunition types, a lot of ammunition comes in grenade, as well as other stuff. And how that works is when you're buying bullets, you're getting 10 for the price category of the ammunition type. But when you're buying a grenade, if grenade is available for that ammunition type, you pay the whole cost just to get one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, see that I didn't originally. Perhaps when I was reading it, I missed it, but I didn't actually see that grenades themselves were considered an ammo type. Like, so I was looking for where's the pricing to have a grenade? I know that they're part of a grenade launcher, but most games I'm used to them having their own pricing specifically for a grenade. You know?
Yeah, we arrows are also done in that way, so you can get all these cool arrows with like tips and stuff. We just wanted to do it in one easy chart.
Yeah.
And admittedly, the text you were looking for is like 2 sentences right after a title in an ammunition page. That's easy to miss. I don't fault you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And but it worked out just fine because there's a sections of the book that tell you how much rocket damage do, how much grenade launcher damage do, and we just kind of, we carried the one and figured it out, and we realized like this is what it does.
You were within 1 point of damage to this actual rule.
Exactly. So it all worked out. And you know what? And we guessed the right pricing too, because we were like, and you know how we did it, James, is we're like, okay, let's take all the other things that we know are priced at X and Y, and we realized like 500 would be way too much for a grenade, 50 would be way too cheap, so it's in between 100 and 500. It has to be somewhere in the 100 to 200 range.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, that in and of itself spawned another discussion that me and John had about pricing and kind of grenades. Because the Techie, right, he has his ability to fabricate.
Yeah, let's go deep into the Techie, starting with what you're about to say right now.
Sorry, I can't transition.
No, that's perfect. Let's do it.
They have the ability to fabricate. Now, with their ability in the rule book, it says, you're allowed to make them whatever pricing you feel is appropriate, but you can't go under premium or expensive, whichever one is 500.
You're not talking about fabrication. You're talking about
invent.
You're talking about invention.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can't. The idea is you cannot invent an item that is super cheap, because you're still making the first couple of them. You don't have economies of scale that allow you to produce those items at that cost.
Yeah. So
also, that kind of it gets. So the worst thing, like, here's where the system breaks.
Okay.
And why that rule exists. Why that rule exists is, let's assume that you didn't have a GM as cool as this guy, And
I'm sorry, James. Sorry, just to interrupt you for a second. Just to clarify, what we're saying is the techie cannot invent an item less than 500 eddies in cost. That's what we're talking about. And he's talking about why this breaks the game.
Indeed, that is what I'm talking about. Is if you had because that's a danger area, $100 items. If you made a powerful an item that was perhaps too powerful, but your GM allowed, and it was at that $100, $50 price category, you could really snap the game in half if you just started pumping them out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a stopgap on okay, no, you just make expensive things.
I get it. So it's a suspension of disbelief kind of thing, just for the sake of keeping the system in place.
Yes. But the story behind it is also that if you have if you're making the first thing in anything, the first one always costs more.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
like
the prototype.
You have to make molds. The prototype always costs more than the factory, the 300th one off the factory line, right? It's always going to have additional costs associated with it.
Yeah.
I will say that other than that caveat, that is one of the the most open-ended rules I have ever seen or written.
100%. And see, the case in question, right, that we had, the example is Brian was like, what if we made a throwing knife or a throwing dagger that had like an explosive tip like an arrow has?
Oh, I'd put that at 500.
Yeah, so that's where he was saying, like, so what would it even be worth making it if it's 500? Is the idea that you make it the first time and it costs 500, but then after that you can make it cheaper?
Because if you...
So, yes, if you're making an item and you're making it 500, then it's the 500 category. But then when you fabricate it as the one under its category, right? In terms of price. So you're only paying 100 to get an item of the 500 tier. So you're multiplying your money by 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't see how for like what, 2 days?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's real and that's time. And okay, so then there's the other economics question of what could you have been doing in that time?
Mm-hmm.
So you also got to consider if I was hustling, which you can only do in increments of a week. So there's a little puzzly. Oh, when do I hustle? When do I not hustle?
So if you're doing this thing for 2 days, you can't work. So you're missing out 2 days of work because you're making this thing.
Yeah. So you've got 4 more days at the end of the week, and you could always do it on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody said that you couldn't. Or you could put in your time on it at night.
Sure.
Or something like that. Or you could get your med tech to inject you with stim so that you can work all night, work all day.
Or some drugs, some other street drugs.
I mean...
Oh, sorry, not stim, surge.
Surge, that's what it was.
My bad. Surge.
Medical grade meth.
With no downsides.
I love the dark future. There's no downsides to the drugs.
Well, no. Specifically, there's no downside to anything the med tech will make. All of the drugs have horrible downsides.
Expensive pharmaceuticals, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, has its own price too. $200 a dose, and 200 eddies, I should say. Which is
not accurate. That's not accurate. I'm gonna have to come after you on that one. It's 200 EB to make enough substrate to run the test once, and run the cook session once. But the more points you have in that specialty, the more efficient you get at making drugs.
Okay. So you could fail, which means you have to make it again, which would be a sink.
Or you could succeed and you make more. Sorry, James.
Got it. See, that's
because the more skilled you get, the more drugs you can get out of one bit of reagents.
Pretty much, it's it's the drug dealer who gets really good at cutting the coke.
That makes sense.
Now I'd say it's that you stop like bleeding. Right, I took some chem labs, and you would lose a bunch of your stuff to like, oh, I spilled a bunch of. It's amazing how much you spill when you're in the chem lab. You start thinking like, wow, if I was working with some other stuff, I'd be really effed right now.
Yeah. So let me ask you something about the Techie, because the blueprint is pretty it's as specific and ambiguous as it can be, because it's like, this is the blueprint on how you don't break the game, and like, have at it, with the caveat of like, make sure you're talking to your game master. So me as a game master,
your game master is the one doing it. You're saying, I want to do this, and the game master says, you can do this.
Yeah. So what's really happening
for GMs?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is as a GM, you've introduced something where you're telling the players like, hey, there is this ability in the game that lets you make anything. So like, I want to make something. So you either you're going to tell me, no, we're not going rules as written, and you're not going to let me make it, or you're going to let me make it. So as a GM, I'm trying to figure out, how do I figure out what parts are needed? You know, like, let's say, for example, one of my players, he says he wants a guitar that can be used like as a melee weapon and also have like a flamethrower on it. Right? So do I go to the micro and say, okay, you need a fuel tank, you need some sort of switch inside that switches electricity, you need a blade that can fit inside this? Do I go that minute? Or do I just take the price of a flamethrower, a guitar, and a light melee weapon, put them together, add a plus or minus a few bucks, and then tell them that's exactly how much it's going to cost?
Okay, so in the case of our flamethrower, light melee weapon, guitar,
yes,
what I would do is consider it as a finished product. What does it give the player? It's a flamethrower.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
How much does a flamethrower cost? I believe it's
1,000. I think it's 1,000.
Is it 1,000?
I think it's 1,000.
Is it 1,000?
I should have had the book with me.
No, it's the flamethrower. I can find
it's
it.
500. No, it's 500. It's 500. It's
Okay.
gotta be 500. It's one of the heavy. I know it's an exotic weapon.
It is an exotic weapon. Give me 2 seconds, and I will have the exact number for you.
Thanks, brother.
So are they?
This is what I do for the team. All right, give it a second.
And this is pre-recorded, so I can edit this out if I need to. Who cares?
Flamethrower 500. Oh, yeah, it's 500 because it's basically just a shotgun that fires incendiary shells, more or less. But
yeah, I mean, it uses the shotgun rule for that spread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a spread weapon. Funny enough, the first actual video game I made had a flamethrower in it and a grappling hook. It was at a DigiPen camp. And all it was a triangle hitbox that I'd play a particle effect in. And even though the particle effect started here, the whole hitbox was active.
Yeah.
You jump around or whatever, and you just like hold the space bar, and things would get deleted before the particle effect actually touched them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because I couldn't figure out how to make the particle effect be the hit zone. Anyway.
Well, don't ask me, dude. I play the games.
I've never made another platformer after that.
Oof.
Hey, you know what?
Stick to puzzle games, I told myself.
Yep.
Anyway, you got your flamethrower. So that power is at 500. Guitar is not adding a lot of player power to that object. So I'd say you price it at 1,000, just because it's also a melee weapon.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, I wouldn't make a guitar a light melee weapon to begin with. So the fact that they want to put a light melee weapon on what is essentially a medium or a heavy melee weapon, you hit somebody with an axe.
Well, I think we when we had originally thought about it, we thought it would sound better as like a heavy to very heavy melee weapon. but looking at the rules and everything, we saw that you have the, we basically used the weapon attachment of the bayonet to kind of morph it into this, because it's like you already had the rules for the bayonet in there. So if we just kind of added it and flavored it as the guitar's an axe down bottom instead of a bayonet. But I do agree with yeah.
So let's say, okay, so now we know how much it's going to cost. Let's say with inflation and just the fact that we're in this state, this city, blah, 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 it's going to cost $1,300, okay? We add a little bit just...
I wouldn't add variability to that, but that's just me.
What? So explain why. I would love to know why.
So it adds an element of accounting, but then again, do whatever you want.
Yeah, no.
Once you buy the book, it's yours.
I just would love your insight.
So I like the idea that, this is an 1,000 item. So once it says 1,000 item, everybody knows it's the very expensive price category, and there are specific rules associated with the price category. And adding a little variation, doesn't hurt anybody. In fact, Fixer does that all the time.
Yeah.
For his price.
The other thing is it's not any functionally different except charging them $350 extra for what is essentially I put an electric guitar in another thing. I don't think that actually adds much to player power. In fact, I think putting the bayonet on it doesn't really matter at all.
It becomes more of a fluff thing than a crunch thing. He wants to be able to...
If it's not...
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. If it's not adding like crunchy player power, you don't need to charge them for crunchy player power.
I get it. Well, what I was thinking is lore wise, or just to keep the fluff going. It's like the fixer that you talk to procure the items that you need has his fee that he needs, and then there's the techie that has their fee to put it together. So like all together, you're gonna pay like $1,350, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I believe raw. It says that you have to spend, and you're probably looking at the page right now. It says that you have to spend materials equal to, what is it, half the price category? No, it's the whole price category when you're inventing. When you're making the first one, it's the whole one.
Yeah.
So I think it's perfectly fine to make acquiring those $1,000 materials, 1,000 EB materials, part of gameplay, and then have the fixer trying to upcharge you on it or something. I think that's fine. I think that's perfectly fine.
Okay. So then now let's say we know how much we're going to pay, and we basically know what items we need. Do I just make the player go around scavenging for parts? Do I have them go to a local fixer and see if they have those parts? Should I make them available to them? I know that's kind of like all up to the GM, but I'm trying to figure out if this is like video game mentality where you're like, you go to the shop and they have the things that you want.
That depends.
Yeah.
The ultimate answer, that depends.
Of course.
So in this case, we're still talking about $1,000. So basically, you've told your at this point you've told your tech player, okay, your goal is now to go acquire this very expensive amount of reagents. The thing about the very expensive price category, though, is it's not in stores. Even the $500 price category, expensive, isn't in stores either. So they have to go to that fixer who might take a cut, or might be their buddy, might just give it to them, depending on how much they like him, or maybe, hey, this is great. Yeah, I can hit that. But then at the end of the conversation, they'll be like, oh, I got this thing for you to do next week. You think you're free? You use it. You don't let them have any chance to escape the plot.
Yeah.
Or escape the idea that there are other people who want to do other things, and the exact thing that they want to do at the moment.
Yeah. So anything priced under 500, they can potentially get it at a store or a local vendor.
No, everything $100 or less.
Oh, okay.
$500, that price category is the first one where it's fixer only or night market rarely. And when you go to the night market and you're not a fixer, you only get what they have.
I see.
But if you're a fixer and you go to the night market, you can be like, Gerald, good to see you again. So, I see you have all of this salmon. Do you have any fire-breathing salmon?
Damn it, James, I'm out of
Um,
that business. Yep. Got him.
This is a copperhead, freshly caught.
Breathes
You
much
know,
fire.
So yeah, the tech. So there's the other thing is that the tech needs to. You're very correct that the tech needs to be in the world to do that. They don't just go, I got a wad of cash and I have a clock resembling time, and I do this and I make anything.
Yeah.
They have to interact with the world. They have to go find it. They have to go to find a night market, talk to a fixer to get those higher end invention reagents to even make the first one. And once they make the first one, then they can make it for that one under category with the fabricate ability.
Yeah. Okay. So I get
to be
it.
Clear. After they make the flaming guitar with blade, priced at 1,000. That item is now very much priced at 1,000. That's what the market says it is. But if they want to go make their own using their money and time, they then get the reagents of that one and get to spend 500 and time to make it.
I see. So the first one's a prototype. It's one of a kind. It's expensive. Then the one after that, you're more efficient. You know what parts you need. You know exactly where to get it. You already have the channels figured out. And you boom.
Oh, it happens all the time. All the time. Ask anyone who does cosplay. Gosh, if I had to do that again, I could do it twice as fast.
Yeah.
Half the money.
Or painting Warhammer models. You're like, all right, I
wouldn't have to go to Michael's so often.
That guy in my squad is gonna be all the way in the back where no one can see him because he was the first one I painted. All right, so do you want to ask about mono stuff, Brian?
Yeah, that was something else we had noticed, especially being, it's Cyberpunk and with like 2020 and stuff, having mono edge stuff was like a big part of it. And in Red, it seems that mono edge is just the way of things. A long sword does the same damage as a mono edge longsword. There's like no difference. They're both heavy melee weapons. And when we were looking through it, I specifically, because we were trying to figure out like a homebrewed rule for mono, and I saw where you had the sword, the unique sword.
It's
mono
the mono, huh?
The mono 3.
Yeah, the mono 3. And, it vibrated and was mono edge crystal, so it took down. It ignored 11 SP and below, and our idea when we were talking about it was, well, maybe a regular mono edge would ignore like 6 SP and below, since it didn't have the vibration.
A lower quality version of this exotic weapon, basically.
And I guess, go ahead. Sorry.
We just talked about tech. If you
got
another cool idea for a weapon, I know you're the solo, so you gotta focus on. You have a friend who's a tech?
No, but I'm gonna go make one.
You should make one. You seem to like bespoke weaponry. Anyway, if you got $5,000, buy the Mono 3. It's it glows red. That's great. It slices, it dices. But to answer the actual question, so a tech could totally make that. That'd be awesome. Personally, how I've always ruled mono blades is I think those are just the excellent quality weapons of their price category. Like that's the excellent quality machete, right? Mono Edge ability on the Mono 3 makes it, that ability is redonkulously powerful.
Yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
insane. SP11 ignoring
that is like
that's
the
insane.
Geralt cutting people in half in Witcher 3 level of sorting. The amount of pain that sword can put out is means that if you got $500 laying around and a melee weapon skill of a certain amount, you should look into it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you'll have to also find one. You know, Zabro likes his, so probably not going to give you his.
Yeah.
And
if you're not a fixer and you're at a night market, you're probably not going to find it. If you're a fixer and you're at the night market, you still might not be able to find it.
I hear they have one. I hear they have one on the what is it? The 4th level of the Oversea Arasaka research facility. In the just right above the mantelpiece of long distant high ranking.
I think Arasaka, I know where our next game session is going to be at, John.
Yeah, we'll just have a little visit.
I would
just a little trip.
I would say that's the classic. It's totally classic. Power game move, right? Like I see an object on the best sword in the game. Can I get a lower quality version of that on that I can have for cheaper? Because essentially what you're saying is, man, that's cool. I'd like that too, but the fact that it's at a lower price category means it's attainable at like level 3, level 4 analog, those early game levels.
Yeah.
Those swords would cut through policemen, even as you've described them. Just like chop, chop.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Half a body.
I didn't even mean for like sorry. And I didn't mean for like mono to be something that would be easy to obtain. It was us just because like I said, mono edged has always been very big in the cyberpunk world and community. And I guess especially when I saw the full rule book come out and I didn't see anything about like melee weapon upgrades, like a mono edged upgrade for a melee weapon or stuff like that. It struck me as odd for the cyberpunk world. So I started just theory crafting how it would look.
So there are more exotics coming, and there are definitely more swords in the future.
Don't get in trouble, James.
I cannot.
I don't want swords, I want bats.
Look. Anybody can look in the future and see more swords upcoming for the latest edition of Cyberpunk.
Fair enough.
It would be a tragedy if we didn't have more swords.
Yeah.
We all love swords. I'm pretty sure all 3 of us, we all love
swords. We need a hammer and a battle axe too, though. Don't forget, there's some people who like the more brutal methods of beating people to death.
There are all things come for those who wait. In the interim, however, the tech ability gives you ways to live the future today.
Yeah,
100%. And
I would say though, for standard mono weapons, I'd say those are just excellent quality versions of the standard melee weapon rules.
Mm-hmm.
They're excellently made. They provide more power. I mean, that's what excellent quality is.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, that makes 100% sense. Like I said, with us, it was just one of those, you notice that it's not there and you're like, well, what would it look like?
Yeah. Yeah, we wanted to assign to it a type of ability that was consistent with what we thought it should be. You know what I mean? So when we saw the Mono 3, we were like, oh, there's probably cheaper versions of this thing out there that is not the Mono 3. So,
I would say there's room for an $1,000 version.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that mono katanas I think you better have 100. You better have at least $1,000 to afford a mono katana, even a low end mono katana.
Yeah.
I would say they probably don't go under that. A lot of people are still using bats and they work just fine.
Yeah. Well, that's
they are. As a matter of fact, that is what Barry Ruth uses, a spiked bat.
That's exactly, and throws hatchets too.
Yeah, he does.
So
it's almost like I knew.
Yeah, somebody's a fan of the Wise Guys. You heard it here, folks. So, James, this is actually a perfect transition to one of the questions I had. This is one of the things that I try to stay away from social media when this topic gets brought up, because I know I'll be sitting there like, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, and like go back and forth with people.
Oh, all love. It's all love.
I know it's all love, and I get frustrated when people are upset about named weapons being gone from the game. And
See, here's the thing. Even the hate is misplaced love.
that's all it is. It's love. See, James has a
Uh,
heart, ladies and gentlemen. That's the kind of people that work at RTalsorian Games.
so we have a table of examples of branded weapons for every price category available to that. So the poor quality version of the gun has a brand example. The standard quality version of the gun has a brand example. The excellent quality version of the gun has a brand example. We got those for every weapon. You can find them. They are hard to find. I will give you that. This is another one where this is a hidden table. This is in the night market section. You're gonna have to slip over to the back of the book.
It's at the end,
But
yeah.
you'll get more than 20 brand examples. We've got them.
Yeah.
That's one of those things where that is in the book. And if you need more, you got a lot of 2020 that you can read for more examples.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy to say, that's a nice gun. I think that's excellent quality. Of course, there's also brand new online released Old Guns Never Die.
Free DLC off the
that
website.
came out. Free DLC. That explains in the same way that that the tech ability is explained. How do you do this and not break things? That's explained. How do I bring all these cool guns from 2020 forward?
Yeah, exactly.
So you got it.
So let me just play
I don't understand.
Let me play devil's advocate and just say one of the things that I've heard people complain about. I don't necessarily agree with it, but they've said I miss the minute statistical details that each gun had with its ranges and magazine capacity and special abilities, like this can shoot a this kind of shell and that kind of shell and blah blah blah. So what would be your response to that?
Oh my! We got a rules lawyer question. You want to?
Well, so I can actually fill this one a little bit, John. I think, and you can tell me what you think of it.
Yeah, this is great.
So go back to when we were playing 2020, and I was playing Jackie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember when I actually had to sit down with you because we were looking at the sniper rifles and stuff that Jackie was using? And, you see the different ways the numbers were pointed out, and it looked like by the numbers you were looking at that it was so overpowered. But when I actually sat down with you and broke out, well, he's only shooting one per round. Then you have this assault rifle over here that's actually cheaper. And if you do the auto fire and stuff, it actually puts out even more damage overall. Higher, lower quality, higher in quality, about the same medium, stuff like that. Taking away all the little minutes is going to keep the game more fair overall, instead of having people go in and figure out, well, they were trying to make this gun a little different and more unique for itself, and all of a sudden someone like I'm going to say an evil version of me goes and looks at that and goes, well, by looking at this, I can tell that this has a clear statistical advantage. It will hit more often. It will do more damage. It is better, and doing it the way they're doing like this keeps that from happening. And you still have your, attachments and stuff that you can add to the weapons to make them special. Like if you wanted a special sniper rifle or something, you could ask, hey, I want to find this. And you look at it and the DM's like, well, yeah, it could also have a red dot on it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
So, let me hop in here. Minutia still exists. You just call it weapon attachments now.
Mhm.
Yeah. See?
Also, we got more exotic ammunition in this game than 2020 had in most of its life cycle. You know, it's still alive.
Yeah.
Seriously though, that's better word for it is while it was Splat was coming out for it. We're like 2 ammunition types off of having just as much ammo, different types as 2020 had over its whole printing.
Yeah.
So if you're getting standard quality weapons, you get to pick the minutia. You get to pick, do I want a good one? Do I want a good body? You know, do I want to invest in a high quality rifle? Or do I want to buy a nice scope and put it on a lower quality rifle? Or do I want to buy a big box of ammo? Or do I want to do all 3?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of space for making the guns your own. And here's an even cooler thing that I have not heard people say. So this might be an exclusive Power Gamer secret.
Ooh, here we go.
You go and you take your gun to a tech. And you go that we didn't even talk about this part of the tech yet.
Upgrade.
But you've got the fabrication.
Yeah.
And we got the fabrication, we got the invention, but we also have the upgrade version. Because after you've invented something and then fabricated it, you can upgrade it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And one of the upgrades is you can give it another attachment slot. I believe it's listed as one of the example upgrades.
Yeah.
And that gives you 4 attachments. You know what you could do with that? You can take a shotgun and you can put an underbarrel shotgun on your shotgun. And then you can put an underbarrel shotgun on your underbarrel shotgun for your shotgun.
Ugh. Inception.
And you can take 3 different shotgun ammo types and put them in each of the different places where you put shotgun shells, as long as you're not mixing in the same tube. And now you've just made a triple-barreled shotgun out of the ether.
So let me ask you, because one of the examples,
you can do that in any number of different ways.
Yeah, but
any number of different gun types. We have more variation, just put in a different way.
What about the rate of fire of changing a rate of fire 1 weapon to upgrading it to a rate of fire 2? Does that break the game?
Yes.
Okay. I thought it would.
That's a sin. That is 100% a sin against balance.
Yeah.
You can repent. It's okay. If you do something in the opposite direction, it will balance it out.
Sure.
That's how we work in Balance Town. Basically, what you just said is I want to increase the DPR, damage per round, of a character by 2x.
Yeah.
That's the same benefit to your damage. Remember the evil version of him mapping this out? That's my job.
Yeah.
That's the same thing as shooting somebody in the head. Essentially, shooting somebody in the head doubles the damage, right?
Yeah.
Increasing the ROF from 1 to 2 of a weapon, that doubles the damage too. So what happens when you take a double damage source and then ROF 2 their head? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you're also talking about
the new Run the Jewels song.
Oh yeah, it's such a good
That's
song.
sick.
Kind of like with that sword originally that you had us find in the game, that you mistakenly was like a very heavy weapon with a 2x attack, and it's like that's really strong.
I would price that at
super luxury, right?
That would be $5,000 super I would do luxury.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's
but that would still be very nice.
Yeah.
I would sooner do 1 more die on the damage and keep it 1 ROF than do that ROF 2. Because ROF 2, even on the melee weapons, that's rough. That's rough. I'll put it all melee weapons except very heavy are already ROF 2.
Exactly.
So essentially it breaks the symmetry of the reason that 4d6 are not anyway, that's
Yeah.
That's one of those cases where I should have thought of that, and then I should have put it in an example of something not to do.
Well, there's always
That's a me.
FAQs, dude. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
This is the
that's
FAQ.
definitely
Exactly.
The FAQ right now.
This is what it is. I'm hoping this will actually be a resource for people.
Give me another question. Give me a harder one.
Okay. What is the will stat?
The will stat is the measure of your will. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's the spirit stat. It's how much fighting spirit you have left. It's when you're in an anime and your friend is endangered and they're your I'm not going to attempt to say friend in Japanese just because I like One Piece. But they're your nakama or whatever.
They're your buddy.
They're
your
in
bro.
danger, and how much willpower do you have to get out of what's torturing you at the moment to go Super Saiyan? It's the measure of that thing that a character has to persist through pain. That's why it gives you more HP. That's why it's used to resist torture and drugs. It's that spirit.
Okay. So basically, you guys split cool into will and cool, basically, is what happened.
Yeah, essentially cool is aggressive spirit, and will is defensive spirit.
Okay.
Or ethos, or whatever you want to say. I don't really even know.
I think of it as like your toughness. Whereas
Yeah,
cool
it's a
is
mental
like,
toughness.
Yeah.
Mm. So basically, if like, give me examples on what a good will check would be. What a good kind of like when
Classic
to use
is
it.
Resist torture and drugs.
Okay.
Resist when being tortured. It's also, I believe, there are endurance or something. I think it's called endurance. Is the other will the other will skill, and that one's used for you're in the desert. You know, it's not you're not prepared to be in the desert, but you're doing it anyways. It's the push through.
Okay. Okay.
Endurance is used when you're in a terrible situation and you're just trying to push through.
What about if you're trying to keep your mental stability, so you don't feel mental duress? Would cool play a better factor in that?
No, I'd say that's still will. I'd say that's resist torture. It's just mental torture.
Okay.
Instead of physical torture.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Let's do two things. Let's talk about.
I might do an M save. I have no idea.
Oh, okay. M save.
Maybe no, that's not a term. I'm mixing my metaphors.
Yeah.
I would do resist torture, but it's a mental torture. I think that's better.
That's fair. All right. I wanted to ask you about the Nomad. So the Nomad's new ability in Red is Moto. It's revolved around a vehicle, and there's vehicle-based combat, so there's a lot you can get. Yep, he's got the enamel pin that he's showing off. But
yeah, that's right.
That looks good. I love that car. I wish I had it.
The difference between Nomads and everybody else is Nomads have better cars.
Yeah, that's the thing, is they have the ability to get, they're road warriors, they can figure all that stuff out. And you guys took out the mention of family being a special ability, as that's like a 2020 thing. But I'm going around telling people that like the reason it's not in there is because it's assumed that your family will watch your back. If you call them, they'll come and help you because they're your family. Like, it doesn't need to be said specifically in the book. Is that consistent with
I would say that is true in a flavor sense.
Yeah.
I would also say that if someone tried to call them like they're a lawman using backup, I'd say no.
Okay.
Just because where are your family? Are they always near you? No, not really. Are there probably cops near you? Yeah.
Okay.
There are probably some. That's why backup makes more sense.
Yeah.
The trauma team being everywhere makes sense because the trauma team is everywhere. Admittedly, your family is probably on the outskirts. If you're in the middle of the city center, which you probably are at Cyberpunk Red.
So I just had a very interesting.
That one was a role ability that made more sense if it was a cop. doing it. So that's why it's now the cop's role ability.
Sure. Yeah, that does make sense. What were you going to say, Brian?
So I just had a interesting thought, right? And this is completely unscripted, and I'm sorry, you can not answer it if you want to. But talking about when you said backup and referring to the family and stuff like that, what are your thoughts if somebody wanted to do something like play an old Nomad style character and they were a Nomad by fluff, but instead used the crunch of like the lawman or the corporal rules books, and they had, their family was the person who provided the backup and stuff like that.
Nothing breaks.
Yeah,
that's great. That sounds fun. You could have all of them. You could retheme them all as Nomads. You could do a super Nomad campaign. You could even take all the 2020 Land of the Free, Home of the Brave books, learn up on those, then do a hacked, let's add 20 years onto it.
Mm-hmm.
Now all the Nomads are of higher station. Where are all the city centers? Okay, put them down. Then put a hex grid on top of that map and do a hex crawl.
Yeah, and also
old school.
With the way they talk about nomads is they all specialize in something. Like some do construction, some are transport. Maybe you're a nomad family that does security and protection, and that's why you can be like a lawman. So would I say that your role is a lawman, but the fluff is your nomad?
Yeah, I mean, and the people you're calling, they're nomads too.
Perfect. That makes sense. Yeah, that way it doesn't break the game.
Honestly, at that point you're just a 2020 nomad.
Yeah.
Instead of a red nomad.
Like technically, it just got me to thinking, because you could do that with a lot of the, things in a different way. Like you could have, if you wanted to play a corpo, but like me personally, if I wanted the fluff of a corpo, but I think that the corpo's role ability is more suited for if you're playing a solo or maybe 2-person game
or a netrunner.
Because I think it's it really messes with the action economy of a group dynamic when one person has that many people that they're controlling.
They're not controlling those people at all. Those are the GM.
Yeah. The GM controls everybody that's not the players. It's stated in the book.
The only time you get to do otherwise or operate something that is not your body, that you're talking about drones or you're in the net.
Yeah. Or some kind of AI and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I think these types of flavor switches, that's just being a good GM.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, that's just good game design.
Yeah.
But I mean, I always refer to them as skin jobs.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a reskin. That's what you're doing.
Honestly, that's how I used to play D&D a lot. You take a cool monster, but it's an Underdark monster that doesn't make sense, and you retheme it so it's not an Underdark monster, and you put it on the surface.
Yeah. Brian's
I've done that so much more than I probably should have. I've fallen back on that so much.
Yeah, Brian's D&D character in my D&D 5e game was some kind of like abomination of like I use a sword but I'm a wizard, or what was it? What did you even do?
It was not an abomination. It was specifically a 5th edition Hexblade Warlock.
Oh, Hexblade, huh?
But okay. The way I played him and why it's confusing for him is I played the character where he didn't know he was a warlock or even really that he had magic powers. He thought that he came from a bloodline of heroes and that this was all stuff genetically from him. And he was like, the artifact that was giving him powers was helping feed that delusion for him.
Yeah.
I like it. Cool.
Yeah, it is cool. That's what Brian does. He plays solos that don't use guns and
and mages who use swords.
Hey, that's a thing. That's why we have type 3 character creation, so you can do whatever you want. However you want, have fun however you want. Just as long as you follow the rules.
Okay,
Don't
let me
forget that
ask you
part.
if we broke the game with this rule change that we made. He wanted to have his solo have a weapon throwing ability. I'm not taking it out of the game, Brian. Don't worry.
That's core.
But he wanted it
That's
to
core.
still have armor, though.
So,
So I will say that mechanic is probably coming onto dedicated throwing weapons in certain books that might be appearing over the horizon. So you're one step ahead of Splat. Yeah, we're planning on making dedicated thrown weapons.
So that's exactly what I did. I made a dedicated skill. I called it weapon throwing, and I said, "Yeah, you can have armor."
we use athletics, like throwing everything else.
Ah, okay.
oh yeah.
Yeah. I get it.
But fair.
Okay.
It's the same thing you use to throw a grenade.
Yeah. I just wanted to make it a separate skill, just so I figured balance-wise, he's spending for it.
Yeah, we added a little bit to it when we made a special skill. Gave the throwing skill, and this only works with light melee weapons, so it's not like he's going out and chucking a sledgehammer at people with these abilities.
I'm out here saying
it
by raw, you
basically
can chuck a sledgehammer already.
Yeah, you could.
but yeah, you can with by raw. You can chuck a sledgehammer 25 feet and clock somebody in the face with it by raw.
Yeah.
But with the throwing ability, we basically gave it double range, so it could reach out to 50 feet or 50 meters, however long it is.
That's a long, long way.
Oh, yeah.
But it's only light melee weapons.
You can poison a light melee weapon. I see you.
Stop trying to break my game, the both of you.
I mean, you can. And don't get me wrong. I'll be honest. I have looked at it, but like specifically, I'm not doing that because I feel it might be too like.
I will say that it's completely fine because what you're doing is there's this movie, I forget what it is, where somebody's throwing a bunch of knives or whatever, and somebody dresses them down for it. They say, so your fighting style is to disarm yourself rapidly.
That makes sense. You know what?
I know I know that movie. I can't remember it, but I know the exact line you're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway,
your character lost the hatchet.
I mean, the throw, I think it's fine that they don't have armor because here's the thing. When you throw a melee weapon, it's no longer a melee weapon. It's a ranged weapon.
That's true.
And guess what ranged weapons don't do? Have armor.
Now,
thus, there's no way you can break it. It's
now when you hit somebody with a thrown melee weapon, now they have a melee weapon, so be careful with that.
Yeah, that's
It is kind of like you gave them a free knife.
Yeah.
Just in the most painful way
and
possible.
I mean, if you helpfully coated it with expensive poison, then that's even worse.
Yeah.
Because you've now given them an expensively coated knife that's good for a whole minute. The bio. Oh yeah. In the ammunition section, this is another hidden thing. We put rules for using the vial of biotoxin and vial of poison.
Mm-hmm.
Those are in there. Do a search for them. That's an interesting way to make a light melee weapon very effective in combat.
Yeah, you code it.
Yeah.
And then you can even throw them.
Yeah. There you go.
Throw them, get them back, throw them again because it's still the same combat. Rinse, repeat, reuse them.
Oh.
Yeah, it's right there. Biotoxin. You can coat weapons with it. Okay.
So the layout is amazing in this book, and the PDF is an absolute treat to go through. And Jay, I know he
killed it.
Praise, but he deserves more.
He killed it.
He killed it with the layout. He made the book make sense.
The links, man. You could click here to go there, click there to go here. It's the best. It's amazing. I love it.
Another thing that is really behind the background, though, but when you got a PDF of this size, optimizing it for mobile is a thing, and it's optimized for mobile.
Oh, wow. I didn't even notice how... I was like, it's loaded so well on my phone.
You got it on your phone. Oh, it's loading so well, right?
Yeah.
I have the non-optimized version. It crashes.
Oh. That's funny. Okay. Is there anything big that you wanted to ask, Brian? I wanted to ask about the corporate, and I think we should wrap it up after that. But if there's something big that you had in mind,
I guess just one thing I did want to ask, and I kind of hinted at it earlier, is there a reason y'all decided not to go with any type of weapon upgrades or attachments for melee weapons at all?
That's because we wanted to make that a system specifically for ranged weapons. In melee weapons, we wanted to. So with the ranged weapons, we wanted to lean more on the like standard 3D printy flavors of, oh, you get the ranged brand weapon examples chart, you build your own, like we said earlier. But for the melee weapons, we wanted to focus more on, I have this sword, it does this, it's an exotic. So the answer for that one is more exotics are coming.
mm-hmm.
That's why.
Okay.
Because it's a lot easier to make an exotic for a melee weapon and make that balanced than it is to present a comprehensive weapon attachments plan for melee weapons. Because honestly, melee weapons are really good.
Yeah, they're super powerful, man.
Making them better, giving them just that one more, that's very good. And they're not designed to be amazing unless you put in money. Because karate exists, and if you pay double the skill points, you could be Bruce Lee instead.
It's true.
And there are high-end ways, like with the Mono 3, to say, Bruce Lee, meet the world's greatest sword.
Yeah, 100%.
But that's the type of thing where you do a little stat point. Like, it's half as stat point intensive, but it's more money intensive. And with karate, you're like, yeah, it's more stat point intensive, but I already have the Mono 3. I got the Mono 3 here, and this is the Mono 4.
Law and order.
I got these monos.
Mono e mono.
Hey.
Oh, I got it. Oh, damn, dude. I got it.
Yeah. Are you a dad? Because that's a dad
That's
joke.
such a dad joke. That's why I got so excited.
No.
Not yet. Don't worry.
I'm working on it.
All right. Well, good luck.
Best of luck, my friend.
All right. One more thing.
Practice.
One more thing that people of the new book wouldn't know this, but when we got the beta version of the rules, there was a section that allowed you to improve your stats. And it did not make it to the final cut. Do you have any insight on that?
That's cutting room floor. What happened was it became meta to increase your stats to the point where you stopped caring about getting new skills or if I spend a little bit more, maybe next session I get another one. What we wanted was for people to focus getting better at things instead of getting better at like, I am willpower.
Yeah.
You are who you are at the end of the day. Unless you want to be somebody else, then there's body sculpting. But focusing on getting better at doing things and getting better at your role, we wanted that to be the focus.
Do you think that it would be too game breaking to give the players something that would improve their stats, like even by +1 or +2?
I will say that that is pretty game breaking, just because think about it this way: getting +1 to a stat is getting +1 to every skill related to that stat at the same time.
Yeah.
So we have something that does that. It's called cocaine.
It's
delicious, it's cheap, and it's available everywhere.
Yeah.
It has no downsides. None at all.
Are you sure? Are you sure? I think there's a little bit.
We're meeting in the bathroom after this, right?
James is a real ass dude.
So I would say that is a little broken, and certainly if that happens in the future, it will be heavily monitored by our scientists in Balancetown and come with some pretty heavy costs.
Yeah, as they should.
When it ever, if ever, comes to light.
Yeah, makes sense.
Unsure on that. I make no promises. I will say that we did not want it to be part of the core experience of the game because we felt it made a lower quality core experience.
Of course. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I like it. I like because people would just if you put something that breaks the game,
people would spend their first 20 sessions trying to increase their ref by 1.
Yeah.
And then halfway through those 20 sessions be like, why is my character better at anything?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're not doing nothing. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, exactly.
All right, so I think that we could go on for hours, to be honest with you, and I'm sure that we'll field more questions, and especially when Black Chrome is coming out. You said in 2 months, right? 2 months, I'll have you back?
In 2 months, talk to Jay. We'll see if we can work something out. We love you guys.
I love you too, man.
Plus,
seriously.
you guys are now partnered with the Reddit. You know,
yeah,
you got those powerful new alliances.
That's what we do out here.
So,
speaking of partners,
no, this has been great fun. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, dude, James, we appreciate it so much. We were looking forward to it and really excited to talk to you about this. It's not something to sniff at, to be able to just like talk straight to the designer about this is our favorite game, and we get to talk to
sniffing.
you. No sniffing at me. No, don't have the sniffles. Stay home if you have the sniffles.
Exactly. Stay home.
You heard it from James. But seriously, man, I appreciate everything you've done for the community, for Cyberpunk, and I'm so excited to see what you have in the future for us. And just thank you, man. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's like I'm dumbfounded by this whole. It's like a dream going on, talking about.
Man, it warms my heart. Thanks for saying that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for doing all you do too.
Man, thank you. I'll do any. It's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure. Seriously, like I get to have my buddy.
Everybody should check out what page is that garden? What page are we on that garden thing on?
I think it's 386 or 385, top right corner. JonJonTheWise.
That's the page you showed to your dad, right?
Yep, that's the page I show, and he was like, "Wait, what is this?"
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Santa tells me.
Yeah.
Santa.
Sounds like someone's a fan of my podcast.
Maybe.
Guy,
speaking
Santa,
of that,
last name starts with an N. I don't remember.
Yep, something like that.
Santa N.
Santa N. That's great. Brian, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Well, just speaking of being a fan, because we said we would. Who's your favorite Wise guy, and why is it Sam Ectoplasm from Sam Ectoplasm's Slayer? He made sure he told us we had to ask.
Well, I appreciate him asking. I will say that I'll have to do more testing.
Wow!
I will,
in your face, Sam.
We'll see if we can't get a couple more tests in. See if we can't get you a more distinct answer.
Yeah, he thinks you're stupid for putting a blade on your guitar. All right, eat it.
No, that's great. Just as long as you poison it and then try to throw it at people.
There you go. Don't give him ideas, please.
So Cyberpunk Red, it is out. The physical release is out as well. It is out to distributors. It'll be in your brick and mortar stores soon, ladies and gentlemen. But you can still get, first of all, 2 things. You can get the PDF for $30 at drivethrurpg.com, or you could go to your local shop, tell them, hey, sign up for the brick and mortar program, or find a bits and mortar program, or find a local place that's in the bits and mortar. Pre-order Cyberpunk Red, the physical book, and you get a free PDF copy. And I can't tell you how amazing the PDF is. The links work, the categories work. You click on something, it takes you to the page you need to be at. Having the PDF is a valuable tool in this day and age. Plus, RTalsorian is kind enough to be adding new things, changing things, errata, fixing things that are...
Oh yeah, the errata goes in quick.
And it goes wherever you got your PDF, you could just download the new version. It's like we're living in the new age. There's patches to tabletop games now. And RTalsorian is working hard diligently. They haven't taken a day off. They've been working diligently to make sure everything is working for us. So make sure you guys go do that. And make sure you guys go to twitch.tv/WhatTheFoole to support Brian. He does awesome streams, plays awesome games. He plays in the Wise Guys campaign with me, along with my other players. And other than that, I can't think of anything else. Thank you, James. Love you, man.
Yeah, man, this was awesome.
Love y'all too. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Peace out.
Bye-bye.